Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years and shares her insights on the local housing market. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. So glad you joined us for Missoula Real Estate Today. Thank you very much. Our guest today is Doug Stanley. Doug is the general manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana. You're based here in Missoula. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Denny. Happy to be here.
Yeah, you've heard the show a time or two over the years, I guess. So.
I listen a lot.
Okay, all right. There's a flaw in your character right there, Doug. Well, no, that's good. Well, we always start with the get acquainted part. Your position with Fred's and what all that entails, a number of years and things like that.
Sure thing. So I'm the general manager for Fred's Appliance of Montana. Right. I'm based here out of Missoula. Fred's is out of Spokane. I've been with Fred's since the end of 2012, helped bring the company to Montana. And I do all the purchasing for the 4 Montana stores. And then I have, about 120 people on staff across Montana.
Wow. What led you to the profession? What was it that excited you about it?
That's actually a little bit of a funny story. When I was in college at good old Montana State, I married a girl, and I just needed a job to get through the winter between university. And I went to work for Vans, for Pete Van, back in the day, in 1989.
Oh, wow. Vans.
So I was there for about 3 years, learned to sell appliances and audio gear. And then I went back to the ranch for 10 years, and Vans came back at me and said, hey, we think we need you as a store manager up in our Kalispell location. So from there, I worked for them for a number of years.
Terrific. A radio tour of the Missoula store, Fred's Appliance. What can we expect to see when we come in? So it's a great looking building. I know you got a lot of space out there. You're probably thinking you need more, but it's a good llooking facility. But what do people see when they come in?
So normally, Fred's Appliance is going to be by far the largest selection of appliances you'll find in town communities the size of ours. Mm-hmm. And so if you walk into the Missoula store, it's, I want to say, about 12,500 square feet of showroom. We have the best view of, I think, any store in the area because we look out towards the mountains and towards the city. And we're just chock full of appliances. We have 18 custom vignettes with premium products. But we also have a very large selection normally of, washers, dryers, refrigerators, just about everything under the sun. Big sales counter in the middle with a lot of folks who are eager to help you.
Great. What is your deal? You've been in the market and in the business a long time. What is the take on the Missoula market when you first kind of started out and now you've been on the journey with Fred's all this time? Is there anything unique about product requests or not quirky, but just things that are kind of interesting that there's a demand for as far as the Missoula customer base? Yeah,
for sure. There are a couple of things that are pretty interesting. And one of the first is that Missoula is a pretty darn good market for, I would say, upscale products. So, our mix is a little bit higher with nicer appliances. So think Wolf Sub-Zero, Viking, Thermador, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. We certainly sell quite a few of those in Missoula compared to some other places. And I would also say that there's because of the growth that we have here, and especially in sort of the urban area, we have a little higher demand than normal for small appliances, like 24-inch ranges, very small refrigeration, and 18-inch dishwashers. So things that you wouldn't normally find in an average home, but because a lot of the size constraints that you have in the community here, we over-index to those.
Yeah. Gosh, I wouldn't have occurred to me. I mean, a regular dishwasher is only about 24.
It is.
It wouldn't have occurred to me that there'd be an 18-incher for that.
Yeah, it's a very specific market,
I guess. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. Our guest, Doug Stanley. Doug is general manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana, based in Missoula. And you mentioned a few brand names, Doug, but products themselves, what are some of the biggest in-demand items right now?
Right now, of course, there's across Montana, and especially in this area, there are a lot of new homes being built.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of interesting things that are happening with that. Part of it's affordability. So there's a lot of low end stuff going into some of the affordable housing. But the other thing that is really interesting is if you look at some specific color options that are becoming available. So black stainless, matte white, and matte black appliances seem to be very in demand and in vogue right now.
I'm glad you're right. I didn't even think to ask about color, but that makes sense that there would be, particular customers for any particular reason. Do you think those colors just because they think they look good or they fit the motif of what's being built now?
Yeah, and that's an interesting transition because 15 years ago everything was transitioning to stainless. From there was a lot more black and white appliances, and consumers overall didn't like the fact that stainless shows fingerprints so much. So over time, they've tried to evolve away from something that showed fingerprints. So they went to a black stainless. The problem with that is that it scratches easily, and then you've got an issue with something shiny showing through. So matte white and matte black have come out the last couple of years as very upscale colors where people can even customize in some cases with handles, for example, handle colors and accents. And they look premium, but they're still fingerprint resistant. And as we've seen an evolution from sort of mountain modern to much more contemporary, much more clean lines in design of interiors, we're seeing an awful lot of transition to that where people can put their own special touch on whatever that kitchen finishes out.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah, no, it does. Fred's Appliance, you focus strictly on appliances. What has made that such a successful business model for the company?
Great question, and I have some particular insight. I think they're having worked for a great Montana company.
We got a lot of time. You go as long as you need to.
So the really interesting thing about retail today is that most companies focus on what's called just-in-time retail, and what that means is they keep very light stock in the back room, and they'll essentially try to predict exactly what customers are going to order or influence what customers are going to order and bring things in, so they don't sit around for more than a week or two at a time. The Fred's model is a lot different than that. And so the owner of Fred's Appliance is out of Spokane, and his motto is when he gets the right deal, he'll buy very deep. And he'll buy a 2, 3, 4 month supply to make sure that customers can always find something immediately for whatever their need is. That worked really well until 2020, 21, of course.
Yeah, here it comes.
Yeah. But historically, that's always been a huge part of what has made Fred so successful is the ability to actually, in interest in actually buying enough inventory to make it readily available for customers. And then, of course, an assisted sales process where we actually have people that are experts in only appliances, nothing else, and can help you make the right selections.
Let's continue a little bit with those supply chains. How have supply chains affected the way you've been able to conduct business this past year or two?
It's been incredibly challenging.
Yeah, no doubt.
If you were to walk through our store, you asked earlier what our store looks like. If I were to give you a tour, and the answer is today, of that 12,500 square feet, probably 2,000 of it is covered in boxed appliances. And that's primarily because while the lead times have increased from, normally I could get something in a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In 2019, for example, and we would already have, 2 months supply in stock of about everything you could possibly want. Now we're looking at 9 to 10 or even 12-month lead times on some premium products. Yeah. And so we have orders stacked out for months and months in advance to try and get products in. And we take what we can get when we can get it. The average consumer has become aware that there are supply chain challenges, and so they're trying to order their stuff earlier, and in many cases are unable to take delivery on that when it finally arrives because the industry has not adapted their informational systems to give us a good lead time. When I order something today, I can't tell for sure whether it's going to come in 3 weeks or it's going to come in 6 months. All I know is that their system gives me a date that's inaccurate. So if a customer customer has a realistic expectation that says, hey, I'm going to need this in July. If I order it now, can I get it in July? And my honest answer is, I hope so.
Yeah.
But I'll place the order and communicate the ETA to you, knowing full well that might not be accurate and it could move again based on what's going on with supply chain.
That's a really interesting customer dynamic that's changed over the last year or two, isn't it? Because, and not giving COVID credit for much of anything good, but for example, I was visiting with one of my clients that I call on, John, that owns Big Sky Kubota.
Mm-hmm.
the Kubota dealership, and I'm sure you saw this at Fred's Appliance too. 2 years ago, a customer comes in. What do you mean you don't have it? Well, I'll go down the street and I'll look at the other appliance store. If they don't have it, then I'll go look at the other appliance store. Well, you don't have the tractor. You don't. Yeah, I want the Kubota tractor. But you don't have it, so I'll go up the road to your competitor, or I'll go downtown to your competitor. And once they realize that nobody else has it either, now it's. I don't want to say it helps manage customer expectations, but I would think that over these last 2 years, customers are kind of starting to get that and hopefully accept that without being too cranky about it. And it's not just Fred's, it's not just Big Sky Kubota. You're all dealing with that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And one of the first things that happened, and remember that we started into the pandemic and the supply chain challenges with a warehouse full of product. So it didn't take very long for our box store brethren to say, gosh, you might get lucky at Fred's, run down there. And of course, almost immediately our sales spiked and that inventory was tapped as well.
Snapped up, sure.
As today goes, most customers understand that there's an extended lead time and they're very patient with that. The thing that's unfortunate, and I wish I could solve for people, is that eventually if your refrigerator has been on order for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, and we told you we don't know how long it's going to take. Are you sure that's the one you want? And you say, yeah, I do. I'm willing to wait. At some point, you get cranky and go, I'm not sure I'm willing to wait anymore.
Yeah.
And my ability to provide you good information in that moment is incredibly challenging. Our suppliers are simply not giving us the information that allows me to be very forthright with you about what to expect.
Yeah.
And so that's a challenge I know that the box stores have as well. Part of my job, of course, is to negotiate with the manufacturers to make sure that we get more than our fair share for our customers.
Right.
And some of them are very responsive and others not quite so much. So,
yeah. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. And our guest is Doug Stanley. Doug is the general manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana. 4 stores, right, Doug?
Correct.
Yeah. He's based here in Missoula. And also want to say thanks to some of Diane Beck's marketing partners that help bring you the show every weekend here on News Talk KGVO. They are Miles Link of Opportunity Bank of Montana, Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, and Carol Blodgett at MakeItMissoula.com. Back to Doug Stanley. Some of the brands you carry, Doug, which ones are you really impressed with that you're most proud to be out there selling?
Man, that's a loaded question.
All right.
So, the sort of the premium, the pinnacle brand for a lot of categories would be Wolf Sub-Zero. Wolf Sub-Zero has sort of the longest track record of being really quality premium refrigeration and quality cooking products. A lot of very, very nice luxury homes you'll find those products in. And I think that they're, for me, they're still the company that has the best user experience from end to end.
Okay.
And other than right now, their lead times. Customers consistently reorder those for the lifetime if they can be in that category. One that's really fun right now is GE, because I alluded to the color options earlier.
Yeah.
And GE, a great American company historically. A few years ago, they were actually purchased by a different company. They shopped the appliance part of it and sold it off. There was an infusion of cash, and these great employees who had 20 or 30 years of being held back because of fiscal constraints suddenly were given some cash to be able to go play in their sandbox. And so they've come up with colors like matte white, matte black, something called slate that has been incredibly popular. And they still build a really quality appliance mostly here in the States, which is an exciting thing as well. So, and, not to make too much of this, but we're in an independent retail. And these guys, it's one of the flattest organizations that we have. So my ability to actually get the right thing done most cases, if there's an issue with an appliance down the road with GE is better than most. So their innovation and their small company feel are both very exciting.
Yeah. And a history, and a part of American history too. I mean, that there's a brand name that has been along. You probably know, I don't, but I know it's been a very long time.
You probably have some light bulbs in here that are General Electric.
I bet we do. Doodads, gadgets, customers always wanting to know, but technology updates. Any newer features among the appliance lines you carry that you feel have really been game changers?
It's funny because I still consider myself a reasonably young person, and I'm not tech averse by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of applied technology where manufacturers are sort of throwing things at the dartboard to see what will stick.
Okay.
And some consumers are really excited. Maybe you want a television in the front of your refrigerator. I'm not sure it's facing where you're gonna have your recipes and all that jazz, but that might be cool for you. More to the point, we're seeing real technological innovations on the service side of the business. So essentially, what happens is some of today's appliances can. My wife's washer and dryer, for example, will tell her when the load is done, because if she's downstairs and doesn't hear it, now she knows she's got to go up and take the stuff out of the dryer before it wrinkles.
Yeah.
There are technologies that help prevent mold in front load washers. More importantly, there are a lot of technologies that are being deployed in appliances today that will alert you if there's a service issue, or alert the service company if there's a service issue, so they can send the parts to the service company. So the manufacturer can send the parts to the service company, call you and say, hey, we noticed that your dishwasher is just about to have a problem. Is there a time we can get on the schedule to come out and take care of that for you?
Okay.
Your sub-zero wine storage unit, if you're somewhere across the planet, you might get a notice from your cell phone that says, hey, your wine storage unit has an issue and the temperature is starting to rise. You might want to get somebody over there before you lose a whole bunch of, very high dollar wine. So for me, that the application of technology on the service side of the business, our tech, we service right here as well. We have technicians.
Good.
Our techs can walk in, and with GE's appliances, for example, they have a device called a Newfie, and they can test every single circuit inside of that appliance and get a reading on what's going wrong with that appliance when they walk into the home. And that enables first call service a whole lot better than it's ever been possible before, especially with computer boards. So I'm excited about those technologies. I'll say it that way.
How do you feel about it? Is it pretty accurate, efficient technology? I mean, they're always trying, whether it needs improvement or not, they're always trying to improve. But do you feel pretty good about it, where it's at right now?
That's a great question. And my answer is it's in the sophomore phase right now.
Okay.
The first blush, pretty rough. They've worked through a lot of kinks and they're getting better and better. I'm not sure that the user interface is where it needs to be yet and you got to realize that, especially with technicians, appliance technicians, the overwhelming majority of them are my age or older, and a lot of them are tech averse. So they're used to not having to work with computers at all. And you hand them this handheld computer and say, okay, now this is how you do it. The more tech savvy ones are embracing it and super excited about it. Yeah. And it seems to be working very well in almost every case. So it really helps.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. And my guest this week, Doug Stanley. Doug is the general manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana, based here in Missoula. A little bit off track here, but it popped into my head when you were talking about the washer, Doug. Is one of your, and I'm sorry I don't know the brand, you probably do, but one of your radio spots, radio commercials that you've ran, and I think I don't know if I ever saw it on TV or not, talks about a front load washer that you might have to help me out here. I don't know if I want to say eliminated or diminished odor. Am I right about that?
Absolutely.
Why is that something that needed to be improved upon?
I'm going to tell you about that one, and then I'll tell you one other technology that's in washers.
Yeah,
example.
please. Yeah.
And it happens to be in my wife's washer.
Okay.
I say that because I'm not allowed to use it. I'm colorblind, and I don't sort correctly.
All right.
So the technology that you're referring to is it's an active vent situation. So essentially, front load washers, when they first came out, we were super excited because they do a great job of washing clothes, and you could anything you could fit in there that would come clean. The only issue was it's essentially a petri dish. When you shut a warm washer that has a lot of moisture and humidity in it, you shut it airtight and leave it for 2 days. You come back and there's a musty and a moldy mildew smell.
There it is. Okay.
And you couldn't get it out. And essentially there are rubber boots inside those machines that now have some sort of mold in them. There was class action lawsuits against Maytag and LG over this.
Wow.
Some years ago. The machines themselves were just fine. It's just that was an issue they hadn't seen coming. So what happens today is primarily that there's an active vent situation. So when the washer is done, essentially it opens a set of vents on the front of the machine and the back of the machine, and it kicks on a little fan and essentially air dries that machine. In addition, the rubber boots are impregnated with an antibacterial coating that keeps them from having any mold or mildew over time. Okay. So that's that technology, and it makes what was a great machine, a front load machine. It solves the number one issue that everyone had with them.
Yeah.
The other technology that's really cool, I should have told you about, is, and this is in both dishwashers and in clothes washers. Available today is the ability to actually have your smart washer decide how much detergent to use. And the reason that's important is the overwhelming majority of dishwasher service calls are because we use too much detergent. So we use too much detergent, and essentially these machines use so little water compared to what they used to. We now plug every sensor and we plug every filter in that machine. And pretty soon water doesn't circulate properly and it doesn't clean the dishes properly. Same thing happens in your washer, and that's part of what the buildup of detergent would cause the odor as well. So we have machines today that have the ability to sense how much food is on the dishes or sense how many clothes you have in that load and determine how much detergent to add out of a reservoir that's on board. So not only does it save you money in detergent, it also saves having to send a technician out a few years from now because you're unhappy with the performance.
Yeah. I, unlike you, do my own laundry, which my wife appreciates, but I think I'm one of those old school guys. I'm using the powder detergent, and I got my little scoop, and I think, okay, I know it said this much is enough, but if this much is enough, then this much more, it's got to be great, right, Doug? I mean, you can't go wrong.
If a little's good, a lot's better, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Doug Stanley, General Manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana, based here in Missoula. On Missoula Real Estate Today, you talked about your staff a little bit. How much training is involved to make sure your folks are on top of product knowledge?
Man, it's perpetual. We have veterans that have been in this industry for 30 years, and they're still learning new things every week. There's an awful lot of training, and it takes almost 18 months for a new salesperson, for example, once they hit us up and join the staff to become comfortable across most of the appliances, and it takes almost 3 years for them to be really comfortable across all the categories. And so if there was one thing I would like to change about the way that we go to market, it would be figuring out how to do a more structured training program. Yeah. We're usually just trying to catch up like a lot of people in the labor market these days. But there's a lot more to learn. You would think it would be relatively simple, but there are so many appliances, and every one of them has their own specific, way that they accomplish whatever the task is. And our folks have to be better than most. That's why that's our shtick, right? Yeah. So we have to spend a lot of time training and making sure they execute on that. And that's before you even get to just how to ring up a sale and how to do a credit card and how to do consumer financing and all that stuff.
Whether it's a refrigerator, dishwasher, what have you, are there features that most customers just have to have? I mean, let's face it, they've been Googling. Yep. They've been online, they've been watching a few videos and features, and they come in and describe that to you. But have you gotten a sense for there's just this handful of must-have priorities anymore?
The average consumer, when they come in, a couple things are most important, and the first is largest capacity. Oh. Whether it's refrigerator, I want the biggest refrigerator I can fit in my space. I want the largest capacity clothes washer that I can get, even though I still have to separate my clothes into smaller loads. Yeah. I think it's a quintessential American ideal that we want the biggest darn thing that'll fit in the garage, right? So, sure. And I think part of that's because typically we don't have to make as many trips to the grocery store. I can cook a bigger meal in that big oven all at once. Yeah. And certainly I don't have to do as many loads of laundry in a week if I've got a larger machine. So I think the size thing is one that's pretty much universal at this point.
Yeah. All right. I sneaked a peek at your website when I knew you were coming in. The finance program, that looks really attractive. How effective and helpful has that been for customers working with Fred's Appliance?
It depends upon the customer, but we find that an awful lot of folks would prefer to not run up their credit card bills or keep their credit card line of credit open. And so it's been very effective for an awful lot of folks. And especially if, we typically will offer a 12-month interest deferred financing program. So essentially, as long as you pay it off in the 12 months, there's no interest. So some folks, when they're building a home or doing a remodel, will really tap into that because it frees up their line of credit for everything else as well.
Right. Right. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest is Doug Stanley, General Manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana, based here in Missoula. And we talked about this a little bit, but just for the folks that maybe weren't catching the show right at the beginning, delivery, installation, service, et cetera. How does Fred stack up in all those areas?
Man, I am super proud of the delivery team that we have out at Fred's. The labor market's tough, but we have a really, really strong operational team out there, and they do a great job of delivering, and we get great reviews. Service is a little tougher for us, I'm not going to lie. And it's primarily because there just aren't enough people going into what is a skilled trade these days. And so we don't have enough technicians to be really responsive, and we're always working to try and find and train more. Installation services, we have some great third party. We don't actually do I'll just say the plumbing part of the hookup for a dishwasher or something like that, or a gas conversion. We have some great third party relationships with some folks that have a long history of doing great work here for our clients. So
excellent. Very nice. You had mentioned you have listened to this program a time or two, so you probably noticed that I always like to ask about success stories. Any sales or customer service transactions come to mind that made you especially proud of the Fred's Appliance team?
Gosh, I'd like to think that there are many, and I can't think of any specific one at this moment. I'm certain that there are lots of them, and I remember, I'll just relate a story, which was, again, worked with Pete Van back in the day.
Yeah.
And on one of Pete's last days, somebody asked him the question. One of our employees asked him the question, Pete, is there a specific situation where you can remember? And he couldn't remember a single one. He said, I always remember a customer that would come in hot, and I could sit down across the desk and come up with an equitable solution. He said they'd be customers for life because we were able to be fair with each other. And I tried to approach that in the same way that Pete did. And so to me, I think about lots of different stories that I've had, and most of it's about being open and honest with folks.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even remember if I asked, about there's 4 Fred's Appliance in Montana, franchise wide. There's where is the Fred's footprint? Spokane?
Yeah, Spokane based, and there are a total of 10 stores from Kennewick, Richland, Washington, primarily in Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and then Kalispell, Missoula, Bozeman, and Billings.
Very good.
Yeah.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest has been Doug Stanley, the general manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana, here in Missoula. We've got to do the housekeeping, Doug. We got location, hours, contact information, website, online, anything you want to share with us there.
Perfect. Yeah. So our location is right next to Lawrence Carpet. We're actually in the same building as Lawrence Carpet in Madison Creek, and next to the Peak at 4949 Buckhouse Lane, just south of Missoula on Highway 93. Phone number is 406-251-7132. The website is www.fredsappliances.com. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to see you out there.
That location, by reputation, you would probably service some of the Ravalli County and Bitterroot Valley customers anyway, but we know how a lot of them feel like about driving all the way down North Reserve. They probably really appreciate that location. And for Missoula, Missoula-based customers, fine too.
Absolutely. What's really interesting is that we see, of course, we over-index to Ravalli County customers for sure. But once we built our Kalispell store, Polson customers that didn't want to drive all the way down Reserve are now transacting in Kalispell more than they are in Missoula.
Yeah, so that would kind of make sense too, because that's if you're coming from the north, I guess that's a little bit of a stretch to get out there. But great facility, Fred's Appliance of Missoula. Doug Stanley, general manager of Fred's Appliance for Montana, on this week's edition of Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Great job. Thanks for coming in. Love to have you back.
Sounds great. Thanks, Denny.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@windermere.com, or for a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit move2missoula.com. That's move2missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.